Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you on behalf of Advantage Austria to this webinar on opportunities from EU funds for Slovenia and Croatia. My name is Wilhelm Nest and I'm head of Advantage Austria Ljubljana. My team and I have organized this webinar together with Advantage Austria Zagreb. Hello to my dear colleague Sonja Holocha-Ertl and her team in Croatia. This webinar was financed through Go International, which is the joint internationalization initiative of the Austrian Federal Economic Chamber and the Federal Ministry of Digital and Economic Affairs. Go International has just been extended by another 2 years, and this will enable us to even better promote your international business. Please have a look at the website www.go-international.at for detailed information about the program and its funding instruments. We will start the webinar with 3 speakers about Slovenia, and at 10 o'clock I will hand over to Sonja Holocha-Ertl in Zagreb, where there will be 2 speakers about the situation in Croatia. And after each speaker, you will have the opportunity to ask questions in a short Q&A session. But now let's get started with Slovenia. Until 2030, Slovenia will have more than 10 million euro as grants and loans from the European Union. This is quite a lot of money for such a small country. Our first speaker is Mr. Klemen Kushir. He is head of funds department with the Government Office for Development and European Cohesion Policy. Mr. Kushir will inform us about EU funding for the post-pandemic recovery and how Slovenia can benefit from it. Our second speaker is Mrs. Natasha Floriancic with the Development Fund Service of the Ministry of Economic Development and Technology. She will speak about incentives and government tenders, especially for Slovenian SMEs. And our third speaker is Mr. Matejs Kočir, Head of Internationalization with the Department of Economic Development and Technology, so from the same ministry, and he will inform us about incentives for investments in Slovenia. This is of interest for foreign direct investors. But may I now ask Klemen Kushir to give his presentation.
Yes, good morning. As already announced, my name is Klemen Kushir. I work for the Government Office for Development and European Cohesion Policy here in Ljubljana. Our main role, you know, in the system, so to speak, is that we are the ones that coordinate, I would say, the funds from the European Union. Let me begin. So on the first slide, you can see a cake, you know, that is now, you know, developed from very different sources that are available currently for Slovenia. A part of it, or maybe before I start, let me just give you a disclaimer that, of course, the different policies and different funds that are currently programmed by Slovenia, that the programming exercise is underway. So there are still, I would say, ongoing consultations with European Commission between ministries and between different stakeholders. So everything that I will say today is, I would say, temporary, but I think it's a good, I would say, it's already pretty much clear where we will, as a country, go. So in this cake, maybe I would like to mention first the red part. The red part is something that is ongoing now. So this is the multi-annual financial framework for 14-20 that is actually operational till the year 2023. So the current call for proposals and current projects that are on the ground implementing right now are you know, from this part of the cake that is not meant, that is not included in this 10 billion euro that were announced before I began to speak. So this is something that I have to mention, and those 1.4 billion are already underway, so they were already disbursed by us but are implemented on the ground, and there are still some calls for proposals that will still be published and that will have to be implemented till the year 2023. So everything that you can apply now is from this red part. The other parts are actually the parts that are coming, that are in the phase of the programming, as I have explained previously. Let me just say that the major part, this is the cohesion policy part, 3.2 billion, is something that we are also the managing authority, and this is the part that I will explain upon in more detail later. The part that is a bit quicker as far as the implementation is concerned is the part that is recovery and resilience plan. So this is the money that comes from the Next Generation EU, and there we have 3.6 billion euros, I would say, loans and 1.6 billion grants. Then I have to mention also, of course, the funding for the Common Agricultural Policy that is actually run and programmed by the Ministry of Agriculture, and also the REACT EU money. This is actually the additional money that will be put to the MF 2014-2020 and has to be implemented till the end of the year 2023, and will be used primarily for the measures combating the pandemic. So if I go on, this is in Slovene, but the main message here is, of course, that we have here, I would say, three kinds of different mechanisms or measures or funding from the European sources. The first one being VFO 2014-2020, together with REACT EU. Here we can see that this is something that it must be implemented on the ground until the end of 2023. So the first part, the VFO 2014-2020, is already operational, is being implemented, and the second one, REACT EU, is still being in negotiation with the European Commission. This is a part, this is a little bit more than 300 million that will be added to the 1420 and will be mainly focused on on recovery after in the pandemic. So the big part of this REACT EU money is the missing, I would say, health and social infrastructure, but there are also funding for research, development, innovation projects, and other things. Then we have the second part that is comprised of GTF, then the Rural Development, Recovery and Resilience Fund, and loans. This is the part that was secured by the European Commission from the so-called Next Generation EU, and this is something that it has to be, I would say, used, disbursed, implemented until the end of 2026. So this is the second package, and also due to the timeline, the second important. In this part, we will talk later on about the recovery and regeneration plan that is now in the final stage of the preparation by our office and will be sent to the European Commission till the end of the April this year. And then we have the third package. This is the multi-financial framework 21-27, together with SKP. This means Common Agricultural Policy, so the rural development part, and together with the Just Transition Fund. And this is the third package that will come afterwards, after preparing the National Resilience and Recovery Plan. So if we continue Slovenian profile, I will not go too much into the detail. Maybe what is here very important is the coverage of imports by exports. As you know, in comparison with other countries, Slovenia is very export-oriented. So a lot of, I would say, funds are already used and will be also in the future used for the internationalization of the companies, of the entrepreneurship. You know, especially being supportive as far as the innovation projects are concerned and research and development projects are concerned. This is something that is where the measures will be linked to the smart specialization strategy. That is also currently, the preparation of which also currently is underway. Then the population 65 plus age is already over 20%. So this also states that Slovenia is has an quite fast aging population. That means that also, of course, the social part of the funding for the next period will be very important, you know, social and health infrastructure and also related projects and operations. So if we continue here, the preparation and implementation of the Recovery and Resilience Plan, as I have already explained, we are now hopefully getting to an end. Maybe what is very important here, I would just like to stress the new procedures for research and for Recovery and Resilience Plan. This means that the way that we have programmed this plan is a bit different than what we have done so far. So we had to define, you know, reforms on which then the investments are linked, and those investments are then, you know, they are specified through the specific methodologies that they define, and those methodologies define milestones and end targets, and on the basis of which we will get, you know, as a state payment. So we hope that the administrative burden with the implementation of the new Recovery and Resilience Plan will be not so high as we are used to it in the cohesion policy for the current and the previous programming periods. So at the end of the day, we expect that the first tenders call for proposals for different stakeholders out of this Recovery and Resilience Plan will be operational in the second half of 2021. We hope that the first tenders will come out till the end of the year. If we continue, what were the main challenges? Some of them were already mentioned by me. Maybe, of course, the pandemic situation in different organizations of work in public sector here is something that is of crucial importance. I would say that the most important reform in this regard is actually the organization of work in public sector, where we try, you know, to enhance the development function in the public administration, and also the development thinking of all the public institutions that were entirely involved in the future programming exercise. Then the next one, the coherence with national strategic documents. As you know, this Recovery and Resilience Plan and also other documents have to be in line with the sectorial strategies that are prepared by different ministries. So I would say that in this regard, I would just like to mention the research and innovation strategy and also the smart specialization strategy. The latter is still underway, and hopefully it will be prepared also until the second half of 2021. And it is very important. There are many webinars now ongoing where the entrepreneurs, research institutions, and other stakeholders are put together, and they try to maybe more concretely define, the actual market niches where the Slovenian, I would say, enterprises have the international advantage. Okay, here I would just like to mention that the public consultation was done, but as you have probably seen also in the media, there is never enough public consultation, and the time restraints is really, the time pressure is really high. There was not a lot of time. So maybe in this regard, I could say that if we had some more time, we would maybe have to improve this public consultation part of accepting recovery and resilience plan. Challenges and key reforms in accordance, they are all in accordance with country-specific recommendation, that were issued by the European Commission. Most important one, as I have already mentioned, is the health and long-term care system, due to the aging population, then to mitigate the social and employment impact of the COVID-19 crisis, and of course to sustain the economy and provide liquidity and financing to businesses and households also in the after-pandemic area. Frankly, when we program things, we have some difficulties now because the current situation is very specific, and a lot of businesses now are heavily subsidized by the states, and nobody exactly knows what will happen in hopefully in a few months' time. When these subsidies from the states cease to exist. So we hope until then that we have the system of measures and projects already operational, to help different sectors, to recover as quickly as possible after the COVID-19. So the key orientations, the whole plan is called Advanced Slovenia. The key three orientations were, of course, resilient, green, and digital. This is probably nothing new. These are also the main themes that were suggested by the European Commission. So if we go a little bit further, this cake shows, how the Slovenian Recovery and Resilience Plan is, I would say, composed. So we have, out of these three main, orientations, we have set four main priorities: health and social security sector, then smart and sustainable and inclusive growth, green transition, and digital transformation. As you can see, almost half of the money will go to the green transition. Green is something that is in the, I would say, in the Slovenian national logo. Slovenia is promoted and is actually a very, I would say, a country with a high Natura 2000 percentage areas, with a high also natural biodiversity. So this is something that we want to maintain also for the future. And of course, the second one, 26% contribution towards the digital transition. This is something very much and very strongly connected to the Slovenian smart specialization strategy and the priorities that are set in that regard, like smart housing and so on. So if we continue, now we go a little bit, hope I'm not too exhaustive, no. Okay, just a few words about the next package. So now we have finished with the Recovery and Resilience Plan that will be, as I have said, sent to the Commission till the end of this April, and afterwards we will enhance, our work on programming for the next cohesion policy, I would say, programs. In this regard, maybe some just general data. The Slovenia is in this regard, eligible to 3.2 billion euros, whereby the cohesion policy is a bit different than the recovery and resilience plan, whereby, as you know, we have different funds, and those funds are also, I would say, content specific. So Slovenia is eligible on the top corner. You can see, unfortunately, in Slovene, kohezijski sklad, it means the cohesion fund. More than 800 million is dedicated especially for the environmental, for traffic, and for the energy infrastructure. This fund is actually allocated on the level of the state as a whole. So that kind of money will be used for mainly for bigger projects, I would say, in the area of environment and energy, and also in the area of improving the railway infrastructure that we have currently. Then we have the other two funds, European Social Fund and European Regional Development Fund. Those two funds are regional specific, so to speak. Slovenia is divided in two cohesion regions, the eastern one and the western one. And the western one being, or I would say the western one also includes the capital. So the level of the development is much higher. So it's a more developed region in European terms, whereby the eastern cohesion region is less developed. That's why also the eastern cohesion region will get almost 3 times as much money as the western cohesion region, and also this percentage of co-financing on the project level is much higher in the east than in the west. So these are the key priorities. I will not go too much into the detail. As you can see, the priorities are quite, I would say, similar and also complementary to the ones that were already mentioned at the recovery and the resilience plan. So I would say that these are the so-called European priorities, and those priorities will be matched with the Slovenian priorities. For the cohesion policy, the partnership agreement between the Commission and the Slovenia will be the first document that will have to be set, and this is something that is already underway, and that we think that it could be finished more or less in 2 or 3 months time. And there we have set our own priorities that are up there. So knowledge society, energy efficiency, water management, especially wastewater treatment plants, where they're still not existent. Then railway competencies, long-term care, social inclusion, safe food, natural resources, aquaculture, maritime, and fisheries. So this partnership agreement contains also, besides the cohesion policy as the main funding sources, of course, also the rural development, the fisheries, the maritime, the aquaculture, and also some other contents. So let me finish with key features of the programming for the next programming period for the majority of the funding. So the programs are still in preparation. Currently, as I have already explained, partnership agreement is in final consultation with the Commission. The priorities from the Slovenian side are set. They are also matched with the European priorities. So we don't expect that these negotiations with the Commission will be prolonged much further. So in months or 2 months' time, the partnership agreement will probably be agreed. On that basis, the programs will be prepared. The programs will be more operational, and they will be based on the so-called enabling conditions. Enabling conditions are the so-called sectorial strategies, and their preparation is also underway. I would here like once more to especially mention the smart specialization strategy that is prepared by us. All the other enabling conditions or sectorial strategies are prepared by different ministries. So currently we want to, or the current decision is that we will probably have 3 programs, one for the cohesion fund, so to speak. So one program for the that is nationwide, so to speak, national one, and the 2 programs that will be regional specific programs, one for the Eastern Cohesion region and one for the Western Cohesion region, whereby we will, of course, do everything in the system of the implementation that, you know, if there will be projects, hopefully, that will connect both sides, both more regions, or also with international stakeholders, so that we hope that the system will be improved in a way that the actual beneficiaries will not feel any administrative burden due to the more programs that we will prepare. Then maybe just to mention also the thematic concentration of ERDF. This is something that is probably crucial for the programming of the especially both programs for the Eastern and the Western Cohesion region. This means that, and this derives from the European regulation, and at the end of the day, this means that more than 90% of the ERDF for the Western Cohesion region will be programmed for the policy objective 1 and 2. Here is a mistake. So one being smart and 2 being green. So, and I would say inside of this 90%, more than a half, of course, will be dedicated to smart. So being smart, in the smart, we have specific objectives like investing in research and development and innovation projects, also investing in small and medium enterprises, investing in digitalization in accordance with the smart specialization strategy. So this kind of projects that are very propulsive when looking through the development perspective. On the other hand, the Eastern Cohesion region will have a program where the distribution of funds through different policy objectives will be more evenly distributed. So this means that in the Eastern region, more money will be available also for other objectives like tourism, culture, social infrastructure, and so on. What is important, and this is something which I will finish, these are the complementarities between all those funding sources. This is something that we are constantly working on, and we are we will have to put additional efforts into it. We hope that all those programs will be in synergy, in as much synergy as possible, so that the funding, the development, and also for you, for beneficiaries, it will be easy to follow or easy to decide where to apply. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Koshir, for this interesting and very clear overview over the various EU funding sources. We still have 1-2 minutes for small question and answer. One question from the audience is, what mechanisms do you expect for municipal projects under the cohesion policy in the upcoming years? Which
Yes, we envisage to have, as in this programming period, also in the next one, the so-called territorial mechanism. So for a part of the funding, there will be a decision done by the municipalities themselves, where to invest actually. So in this regard, we envisage to have like 3 different mechanisms. One will be dedicated for the city municipalities, you know, and this is the part that is also from the European regulation point of view, the minimum 8% of the European Regional Development Fund has to be dedicated, you know, for urban development. And this urban development will be in the 11 city municipalities as now. This is something that will probably be upgraded as already implemented. The second mechanism is the so-called community-led local development. This is done by the local action groups. We have in Slovenia, I think, 37 local action groups, and they also, this is a 100%, I would say, a bottom-up approach. They decide for themselves completely what they want to finance, but for this part, approximately 1% of the whole European Regional Development Fund will be dedicated. And then there is a third approach, the national ones, that is targeting the regional development. In this regard, we are still systematically trying to improve the current situation that is not optimal. We will optimize this, and also together with the stakeholders, I would say we will suggest also an improved mechanisms for the regional development for the next programming period, hopefully very soon. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. And then there is one more question. Do you expect that the system of using funds will remain the same in the upcoming years as it was in the past regarding the competent departments, or will there be changes?
Well, I expect that the system, or let me put it this way, we are reviewing the system, and we are improving, you know, the certain mechanisms that are working not optimal. I have already mentioned this regional development tool that is, in our opinion, not optimal, but these are, you know, small things in the system that is currently being implemented. So my prediction is that the system will remain more or less the same. So the beneficiaries also are used to it, so they know on which ministry, on which call for proposal they have to apply for which content. And we want to keep this, but in some cases there will be, I would say, not significant changes, but hopefully being more operational for the. So we will try to shorten, you know, the time for the decision of the co-financing for the beneficiaries, and we will also try to simplify the costing, but this is something that will not change the system as a whole.
Thank you very much. That was interesting. Thank you, Mr. Koshir. And I would now like to turn to our next speaker, Natasha Floriancic. So I would, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, William. A warm welcome from our ministry, and also thank you, Advantage Austria, for the invitation. So I have prepared for you a quick overview of the incentives of our ministry and our implementing institutions like Spirit, Slovenian Entrepreneurship Fund, and Regional Fund, and also National Development Bank, Seed Bank. So first, let's look at the open calls that we have this year. I have chosen not all, but the ones that I think that might be interesting for you. So in the field of internationalization of SMEs, we have calls for strengthening brands, for upgrading e-commerce, for participation of companies at international fairs abroad, and also for business transformation. Furthermore, we also have calls in the wood processing industry and tourism, for the co-financing of the promotion activities for tourist providers, for marketing activities of receptive travel agencies and tour operators, and for introduction of environmental and sustainability labels. Also, we have various repayable incentives available, which are mostly meant to be used for SMEs and in research and development and innovation area. But we also have like a loan fund for wood processing chain, and we also have some equity financing opportunities, and also open now a call for COVID-19 mitigation credits. If we now turn to the calls that we are preparing and will be launched soon. Already in the next month, we will launch a call for digitization and digital transformation of SMEs. And we will also launch a call for researchers in companies, and also a quite big call for investments in tourism infrastructure. With this, we will also extend our voucher system from the REACT EU part of the funds. Here, I would also like to stress that there are some vouchers open now for certificates, for the application for patents, for B2B meetings, for status transformation of companies, for the introduction of business excellence models, and for the transfer of ownership. As already Clement has explained, Slovenia is also in the last phase of preparation of the National Resilience and Recovery Plan. Our ministry is planning a little below $1 billion of funds, which is divided on grants and loans. Here you have the main areas that our ministry will invest in. So energy efficiency in industry, 65 million, as you see. Then for circular economy and strengthening of wood value chain, we have a little more than 100 million. Then for digital transformation of companies, 175 million. And for research, development, and innovation projects that are fostering green and digital transition, again, a little more than 100 million. We are also planning to stimulate investments which will result in higher value added. This will be explained a little more by Matej after me. Another big area for us is tourism, which was now quite badly hurt by the COVID-19 crisis. For the cohesion policy, we also Clement has explained the main areas of support. The programming, as you have heard, is in process. So we don't have yet the actual financial allocations for different areas. But our ministry's priorities are research and development. Here also the strategic development innovation partnership will be financed, the research and development projects, and also complementary initiatives for Eureka projects and for Horizon instruments for SMEs. We will also finance growth and development of SMEs through the support to business ecosystem so through spot services, through technology parks, incubators. We also plan to have some investments in economic and business infrastructure and in tourism destination management. We plan to launch grants for startups, scale-ups, product and process innovations, social innovations, branding, and we also would like to continue with these small-scale initiatives for really smaller companies with vouchers. Another priority is digitization and to more energy efficiency. The more detailed incentives are explained here, and for circular economy. This was really a quick overview. We have a lot of things, so if you have some questions, don't hesitate to contact us. Here is my email, and I thank you very much for your attention. I hope that I was not speaking too quickly.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Floriancic. What I learned from your presentation are all the business areas which are important in the future and where Austrian companies indirectly can benefit when they do business with Slovenian companies, especially in these areas. Is this right?
Yes.
Because some of, especially where you explained about the tenders, this reminds me very strongly of our internationalization program, Go International. The difference is that you have a tender for a certain date, we have a certain period, and during this period, the companies can actually apply for these subsidies. But it's always good to know about the programs in Slovenia, so an Austrian company could motivate the Slovenian business partner to apply for such a incentive, right?
Yes, and also if they see some opportunities to expand their business in Slovenia, they are also very welcome.
Cool. And there's another question actually from the auditors. Large companies that want to invest in digitalization of the production process, for which of the tenders can they apply?
Unfortunately, now we do not have a tender that is open, but in the framework of the resilience and recovery plan, we are planning also a tender for large companies. But they can use repayable ways of financing, like a loan, which is also not for everybody, just for wood processing at the time. But these repayable funds will also be for digitalization. We expect that the tenders will be launched for digitalization already at the end of this year or at the beginning of the next one.
Okay, and somebody asked the question about one of the tenders mentioned in your presentation. Promoting sustainable business strategic transformation and developing new business models. Could you just give some more details about this? What content?
Yes, I would just like to say that the deadline for this tender is in 2 days. So it's Friday. This is a two-phased tender, and the company can apply if it wants to change the business model really thoroughly. And it's a two-phased project. Like first phase is that you are visiting academy, and you get really good knowledge about new models and how to change the whole company, all the processes. And then at the second phase, you can get expert help to really implement the changes that you have that you have planned in a strategic plan.
Okay, and there is another question regarding the energy efficiency program. Yeah. Can this also be used for reducing electrical costs per change of light systems in offices, shopping centers, and so forth?
Yes, this energy efficiency that is going to be financed through the Recovery and Resilience Plan. As you have seen, there mostly loans will be available for improving energy efficiency, and it can be used for the reducing of energy consumption.
Okay. There is another one. Are there any funds to help us invest in the greenfield investment that we plan near Ljubljana? We already own the land. We are in 100% ownership of the huge Austrian company. Well, I think I will rather send this question directly to you. Yeah, because it's
maybe also
going on quite long.
Matej will talk more about investments, so maybe
Good. Perfect. Okay, so Natasha, thank you very much for the presentation and the answers to the questions. And now it's the turn of Matej Skocir, and I invite him to give us his presentation. Hello, Matej.
Hi. Good morning and warm welcome on my behalf and also on behalf of the Ministry of Economy. My name is Matej Skocir and I'm responsible for the export promotion, foreign direct investment, but also domestic investments. But I will generally try to discuss the support system for the investments in general, and last I will also discuss and give you the feedback for the question about the greenfield investments in the surrounding of Ljubljana. So I really maybe just a few key messages before I go into details. So in terms of investments, we really follow the strategy of creating the green, creative, and smart economy. And whenever we discuss investments, we always need to discuss two sides of the same coin. And the first one is in a way associated also with the tax reliefs, where Slovenia still keeps the 40% tax relief for the investments in material and immaterial assets. And on the other hand, we always still keep the 100% tax relief for the investments in research and development. And the other side of the coin is the one which is really the topic of this seminar, is the financial incentives. So what's the support for that issue? And here we really target two main areas. The first one is the foreign direct investments, where we can see that those figures in Slovenia are still growing, although on the global level we see the downward trend. And the second one is providing the general support for the investments in material and immaterial assets, whether those could be done by the foreign or the domestic investors. And you can see, they basically follow the economic trends. So higher when we have the positive trends, and lower whenever we face the crisis. But if I go into the details, and try to understand what's the backbone of that. So in terms of the financial incentives programs, we have two legal bases. The first one is the Investment Promotion Act, and the second one is the Promotion of Balanced Regional Development Act. They both follow the so-called regional map that was explained at the beginning also by Klemen, where Slovenia is divided in the western and the eastern part, and that has an impact on the maximum allowances. So just to give you an example, so in the western part of Slovenia, where which is more developed, large companies can get up to 10%, medium up to 20%, and small up to 30% of the eligible costs and investments. Whereas in the eastern part of Slovenia, those thresholds are higher. So the large companies can get up to 25%, medium up to 35%, and the small up to 45% of the eligible costs. And if we go into the details, so what's bringing us, so within the Investment Promotion Act, we have higher values, but we can support three kinds of activities. So either manufacturing, either services, or either research and development. And they are all these activities are associated with the requirement of the investment value and also of the creation of new jobs. So to give you an example of the manufacturing, so the existing system says that needs to be the 15 million euro of investment plus 50 new jobs. But due to the COVID, we have for the moment so-called temporary provision, so which is valid until the end of June this year, which lowers those thresholds. So to give you an example, for the manufacturing, there's the requirement of investing 12 million euros, and it's the requirement that the companies need to preserve the jobs, not to create the new one. And there are a few, let's say, criteria or let's say elements I need to mention. So 50% of the investments needs to be in the machinery and equipment, and we really target the added value per employee as one of the crucial criteria, and the location has to be in the industrial zone land. I think somebody mentioned, I think William, you mentioned about the tenders and the time limitations. So within this procedure, we have the open procedure. So there is no time limitation, and we have the transparent methodology, which was published in advance in the official gazette. So basically, companies can make their own calculation what could be the outcome if they apply at this possibility. And we have also envisaged the idea of the so-called strategic investor. In such a case, the companies could get, if the government approves, the so-called intergovernmental task force, which is helping you and dealing with the investments. And there's also the possibility of expropriating the land. What's the outcome on average? So in the last few years, but that will be really a rough calculation, companies received on average somewhere between 20 to 25% of the eligible costs of their investment project. And this is the second legal base, which is the law which targets the promotion of balanced regional development act. As it symbolizes, it's mainly focused on the regional development. That means that the crucial criteria really here is the regional development impact and the multiplication effect. And the thresholds are lower. The investment value, which is the minimum investment value that is required, is 2 million euros. And there is also the requirement of the new jobs, which is 20. But on the other side, if the project is located in the privileged areas, which means the areas with higher unemployment rate or the border areas, the requirement is only the preservation of the existing labor force. The same procedure like with the first law, it's an open procedure, and you need to respect, that some requirements like that the building permit is obtained, and you should not start with the project before you make an application. To give you a few examples of the companies that benefited this program, some of them are quite well known. So maybe just to mention Magna, some of the foreign-owned like Japanese Lonsdorff and Yaskawa, but there are also several others which are Slovene-owned, so domestic-owned, like the glass company Hrastnik, medical company Medico, Petpak, etc. So it's quite let's say, nice mixture of foreign and domestic investors that are applying and using these schemes. So what next? What seems for the future? So we also, like Natasha mentioned, planned quite a challenging component within the Recovery and Resilience Facilitator Plan. So we have the so-called component, which is a supporting environment for companies. And that will be definitely associated with the reform package, and which will have an impact on the legal base. And for the moment, as it is planned, there will be the support for the investments, which will go into the digital and green transition, and which will definitely follow the goal of increasing productivity, which is the added value of employee. And like Clement mentioned, it's planned that it will be submitted by the end of April, and then we'll wait for the approval of the European Commission, and based on that, start with all the internal procedure to launch those instruments forward. That will be all from my side, and if there are any questions, looking forward to receive them.
Thank you very much, Matej, for your presentation. There are indeed 2 questions, and we have some minutes left, so that is perfect. So the first one is, has COVID decreased the interest in investments in Slovenia?
There's no general answer to that. It looks like that the COVID had quite a selective impact. So some of the sectors are quite heavily affected, especially services. Whereas on the other hand, some of these companies in some specific sectors really see quite positive trends. So on average, we really see the increase in the pipeline of the investments project, either planned by the foreign or the domestic investors.
Okay. The other question is concerning the Recovery and Resilience Fund, RRF. How do you see the RRF mechanism?
To be quite honest, it's, for the moment, I see it quite a challenging mechanism. It's really associated with the reform package, with really milestones and targets, which I think will be quite challenging, especially in the area where we discuss investment. So the crisis really have an impact on the investments, and it's in 2021, I think it's quite challenging and demanding to really have plans per quarters in 2026. So let's see what the feedback of the European Commission would be, and sincerely also, let's say, hope that there will be some flexibility allowed in the whole planning and also in the implementation.
Well, we keep our fingers crossed so that you get the okay from Brussels for all your projects. I know that that's been a lot of work, same for the Austrian government, and I think we've been lagging behind a little bit. So Slovenia was even quicker at presenting all the projects in Brussels. Thank you very much to you, Matej, and to the all other Slovenian speakers. We will, in a minute, hand over to Sonja Holoha-Ertl in Zagreb. I just want to say a word because Matej also mentioned it. The Slovenian economy, considering the COVID crisis, is performing okay, I would say. The economy shrank last year by about 5.5% and will grow again around 4% this year. A lot, of course, depends on the international situation, because Slovenia is a strong exporting country, as is Austria, but you will still find a lot of good business opportunities here, and you definitely benefit from the fact that it's a neighboring country. It's still possible to travel, though COVID, and as of mid of May, we are very optimistic that we will slowly go back to normal. Okay, it's 10 o'clock now. And I can also see already Sonja. So thank you very much for your attention regarding Slovenia. You will see me again at the end of our webinar. And now we'll hand over to Sonja. Please.
Thank you very much, Wilhelm Nester. I have to say, it's a real example for a combination of efficiency. Slovenia and Austria, a webinar with 3 speakers and Q&A in 1 hour. So congratulations to the colleagues in Slovenia. Well, we have now moved further southeast into Croatia. Herzlich willkommen, dobrodošli aus dem Außenwirtschaftscenter Zagreb. Now, what's happening in Croatia? Croatia has also been very successful in its negotiations with the EU, and so for funding, and so potentially it actually will have access to about 25 billion euros for various projects and initiatives over the next roughly 10 years. But in our webinar today, we are actually focusing a little bit on a separate area, because Croatia last year was not only hit by the pandemic like everyone else, but it was also rocked by a series of earthquakes. In March, Zagreb was hit by a 5.5 strong earthquake, and in December, the area around the town of Petrinja in the county Sisak-Moslavina was hit by a 6.4 quake. Now, the earthquakes, fortunately, resulted in very few losses of life, but there was a lot of damage to buildings and infrastructure, and that now needs to be rebuilt fast. So I'm very pleased that today we have with us Professor Josip Atalic from the Faculty of Civil Engineering at the University of Zagreb. And Professor Atalic, he specializes in research in seismic risk mitigation, structural engineering, and historical structures, and is leading the earthquake damage assessment team after the Zagreb and Petrinja quakes. And he will give us an idea of the scope of the damage and hence what will need to be rebuilt. And then after Professor Atalic, we're going to hear from Filip Benjak about how to pay for it all, about the financing. And Filip Benjak will then also give us a rough idea about how much money Croatia can expect from EU financing from various sources in the next 10 years, and where Croatia intends to spend it, and when it will be spent. So Professor Atalic is already here. So thank you very much, and I'm handing over now.
Thank you. Kind regards to everybody. Like you said, I'm Josip from Faculty of Civil Engineering, University of Zagreb. I'm usually representing this small research team from our faculty. You can see on the right, and they like to say in shadows, but last year they did great job. As you know, last year Croatia was struck with 2 big earthquakes, like you said, and with serious consequences. And these earthquakes raised the question above our heads about our readiness, preparedness for this kind of catastrophic event. As you know, we should know it, because all available data, all national risk assessments was screaming about the unacceptable risk for Croatia, and we had 2 scenarios of risk in city of Zagreb. As you can see, this city center is marked, all counties are in red, and we should know. All friends from Italy, global earthquake model also presented serious result about our risk. And official conclusion is that the earthquake is unacceptable risk for Croatia. Unfortunately, Croatia country is very limited with funds, and I believe that catastrophe of homeland war also helped us to forget this biggest natural hazard in Croatia with biggest consequences in history. You can see here we have many consequences in its history, and like devastated city of Saska, on 4th century, Dubrovnik suffered many times, and you can see here largest PGA is around Dubrovnik, and another hotspot is near Zagreb, and we have several faults here. What is a really serious problem, serious hazard in Zagreb. Additionally, something related to the exposure or vulnerability in our mindset is to build houses to last forever. And as you see here, we have very, very aged building stock, mostly with no code or low code. And these percentages are real high, and we have only 5% of buildings according to Eurocode. Additional very big problem in Croatia is poor maintenance in most region, and including massive illegal construction. We had over 100,000 applications for legalization, and it's still growing. This, I think, in general, in Croatia, we had before, I hope it stopped, big seismic risk awareness problem. And I think that's the key problem in Croatia. I like to show this table. It's usually gray and dark because it's showing what I said before, that 1/3 it's showing it's related to the changes of code enforcement, so seismic code. And you can see here 1/3 of all Zagreb residential units is built before 1964, when first seismic code appeared in region after Skopje earthquake. And everybody knows that the similar building types is in Skopje and in most of the region. And you can see that additional half of the residential units is built, designed by seismic codes that we have less than 50% of seismic load, only 50% in relate to the valid standard in Croatia. It is Eurocode 8, last in most of the EU. And I think this table can get you some perspective and what we are dealing in Croatia. And in this situation, we were struck by, firstly, by big Zagreb earthquake with magnitude 5.5. This is some general data, but I think most of you are familiar with that. I don't want to lose my time here. And I want to point out that we were very lucky. Day before earthquake, it was lockdown, and like Sonia said in introduction, we fortunate to have only one fatality, but really after a long time, people were shocked and panic among citizens. Many people left this historical center of Zagreb, and we had widespread damage inside all Zagreb. I want to point out that financial losses far exceeding expectations, especially for the event of this size. We are expecting in Zagreb 6.5, and that will be real catastrophic for us, and what we have to be prepared in future. I will present some damages. Most of damages are related to churches. Most of them are damaged because they structural system, and also hospitals, because most of hospitals are very old, from the period of big Zagreb earthquake 1880. Additionally, we have university buildings, also very old. We celebrated 350 years of university last year. And also we can connect here, or most of government buildings, parliament is even older, all the ministries are the same. And that's the point I'm talking about, that this 6.5 will be catastrophic for us, especially for the country. You can see here typical damages. They are most related to the roof, chimneys, and the gable walls, and to unreinforced masonry buildings. How to say, we have outside of the building, I will go back, many buildings are wounded from inside. If you walk to Zagreb today, you couldn't see any damages. All these damages you can find from inside of the buildings. And that's some specific maybe for this earthquake or relatively small 5.5 small magnitude. Like I said, outside the city near the epicenter, we had damaged houses. These one are mostly the illegals one I'm talking on a beginning. In general, we had over 26,000 damage assessment inspections, and these are the results. We have 5% unusable and about 20% temporarily usable buildings. And in general, we are talking here about 22,000 buildings. 3,000 we had double assessments. And this table, it's not last one, but it shows global perspective. These are residential buildings, and showing, sorry, in Croatian, it shows damaged square meters, that we used to say, and distributed by this usability I'm talking about, red, yellow, and green. These are family houses. You can see we have 5 million damaged square meters. Public buildings, and here educational, cultural, and health facilities. In some, we have over 20 million damaged square meters, and if we use only 100 euros per square meter for reconstructions, we get to the billions. And all the assessment for the reconstruction costs, we made it two, one by our government and one by World Bank, are showing the same. You can see these numbers are in billion. Of course, it differs about what count, what attitude is to the reconstruction cost. What is the strategy of reconstruction cost? Sorry. These are some data from this World Bank damage assessment RDNA document. It's online. You can see damage and losses, and most of them are related to housing sector, as you can see here. Also, all that is you can see on these heat maps, and all result is proved this risk assessment I showed on the beginning of my presentation. And maybe these are mostly from some strategic move, but if we are talking about some works or investments, they are mostly be in floors. It had to be done rigid or semi-rigid diaphragm, just stiff floors in our traditional buildings, and of course intervention in walls. This level of safety is now between 20 and 40%, and we are aiming to be 50, 75. Of course, some of them have to be 100, like a school or some critical hospitals. In that direction, if you want to have, if you need the real data about the direction about investing, you can find in two books, which were made after the earthquake, and intention was to cover all activities what should be done in Zagreb and now in Petrinja. And we had a real problem in Croatia about the level of knowledge, specifically in this field of traditional houses. Therefore, we made a lot of webinars, seminars, educations, and trying to raise the level of knowledge, try to connect all practitioners, universities, colleagues from abroad, and every 22nd of the month we made some kind of webinar or education. But I have to say it's a real problem to make all these things, all this education after the earthquake in this crisis period. Last month, we had the first Croatian conference of earthquake engineering with almost 200 works and 26 countries abroad, and it was really successful and helpful. I hope it will be very helpful to rebuild the Zagreb and Petrinja. After earthquake, we made new law of reconstruction, and new regulation, amendment of technical call, and many new things. And that's some kind of problem what we have in Croatia to react after the catastrophic. But now I think we are in good position and in good direction. And in all that period, all that struggle with Zagreb earthquake, earthquake near Petrinja struck us. It was 6.2, but with pre-shock of 5.0, and it damaged. These consequences are really serious. You can see some data, but it is the largest earthquake in Croatia if we measure anything, and it's really important to point out this region, which is very poor, and this region never recovered from the devastation during the Croatian War. This is some data about this earthquake. You can see the picture behind, but it's affecting several regions, a big part of Croatia, and these marks behind is again marks of damage assessment. We made over 50,000. We had over this application for assessment, and currently we've done it 44,000, over 40,000. Most of them are related to this Sisačko-Moslavački county, and this database from the field is very valuable with a lot of interesting data. We have over 60 attributes for every building which was inspected during the earthquake. I will present some data maybe interesting for you. Most of the building is, like in Zagreb, is unreinforced masonry. Some of them are confined masonry, but it's not real modern confined masonry. It's pretty much the old or maybe vertical reinforcement parts inside the wall, but not according to new regulation. And only few reinforced concrete are damaged in this Petrinja earthquake. Also, you can get data from year of construction, property. You see most of building damage are residential, and we have in especially historical centers of these towns, cultural heritage was seriously damaged. Okay, finally, with at the moment we're finalizing another report with the World Bank. It's not finished, but I will present only this general data. You can see damages losses in counties on the left, and Sisačko-Moslavačka is the greatest one. You can see here, and the right, you can see damages losses according related to the all different sectors. In Zagreb, after Zagreb earthquake, we had only 5 main sector like housing, education, health, and business. And here, this earthquake Petrinja made a lot of other damage. Again, housing sector is dominant one, following by culture and business. And we had here after Petrinja earthquake some specific problem like with soil or like liquefaction slides, holes, and especially transportation roads, over 200 kilometers of roads and some bridges. And I think about 100 million euros of damage is related to the roads. On the end, another table, you can see family houses and residential building, and in here total we have almost 8 million damage square meters. Okay, and for the end, sorry, I have to say we have in past lots of sins, and it's very difficult to solve these sins from the past during the crisis. Especially problem was poor database and seismic risk awareness, what result many reconstruction before earthquakes was what was the key or trigger to damages to the building after the earthquake. And of course, education I mentioned several times. Presently, we are struggling with all this preliminary analysis, application for different funds, what is interesting for this presentation. And unfortunately, still, we are struggling with some emergency measures, and we are trying, especially from faculties, all faculties in Croatia, to this education, to this raise level of knowledge of our experts. From future reconstruction process is still in small steps. We are planning to enforce seismic certificate for every building and serious improvements in building maintenance. That's our problem was before earthquake. Strategy changing is crucial for us, and we try to form Croatia Center for Earthquake Engineering, what will be main force to struggle against earthquake in Croatia. And from this perspective, there are a lot of key activities in front of us, and I think it will last forever. That's all from me. I'm here for questions. Thank you for listening, and Sonia, floor, mic is yours again.
Thank you very much, Professor Atalic, and thank you for sharing all your insights with us. Actually, I remember when you told me you were right in the thick of things when the Petrinja quake, the second quake happened. You were right there in the middle of the Old Town Square with more or less buildings collapsing around you. So it couldn't get any more real than that. But actually, one question that came in regarding the rebuilding. The question was that this could also present a great chance for smart and sustainable building. So energy efficiency, renewable energy sources, PV panels. Do you think there will be that there will be a focus on this also for the rebuilding after the earthquake?
Yes, there are strong initiative inside all government to build back better, of course, and we have one pilot program in Zagreb. It's called Block 19, where all 12 faculties and all available data was somehow put in this one block and trying to implement all available data, including green and energy, sustainability. All we have, we're trying to deal with the problems. We have very specific problems on the field, and I hope that this pilot project, Block 19 in city of Zagreb, will show all the people, all the stakeholders, what is the good direction for the reconstruction in Zagreb.
Wow. So that Block 19 will be like an example or a blueprint for how to do the reconstruction of the damaged buildings, right?
Yes, I hope so, yes.
Okay, great. Well, we probably should have a second presentation just on this Block 19 project at a later stage, because that sounds really interesting. Another question that came in is, what's the time for rebuilding? Are there estimations how long it is going to take?
Our estimation is prolonged every time we are talking about. Funds for Solidarity Fund is limited to 3 years, I think, and we are trying to. We got, I think, about almost 700 million euros, and we are trying to spend all that money in this short period. But real reconstruction, all city, all residential buildings, and all our facilities, I think it will last forever, like my last slide said, and one of my colleagues said it will last until another earthquake struck us.
Oh well, let's hope this is not going to happen. I know you mentioned that you're expecting a strong earthquake again for Zagreb, but well, keeping my fingers crossed, this is not going to happen. But one more question. where do you think Croatia is lacking capabilities or resources, apart from the financial resources, regarding the building technology?
I think the manpower will be the main problem. Most of our experts went abroad to work before earthquake, and we have real problem to motivate him to get back in Croatia. And I think the experts in designing of architects or structural engineer, we can manage that part, not fully, but we can manage. But this on construction site workers, I think we will have many problems. Of course, related to your question on Build Back Better, I think this knowledge transfer should be made before the reconstruction really come on the ground. We had this conference last month, and it was really good to listen all this knowledge. Main goal of the conference was shake Zagreb with knowledge, and it was really good. I think in these first years, this experience from Italy, from Austria, Japan is crucial to make fewer mistakes as we can.
Well, let's hope for the best for the future. Let's hope that there are enough structural engineers and architects to help with the reconstruction. And I'm really looking forward to more information about the Project 19 and what's going to be the model rebuilding for after the earthquake. And thank you very much. You already mentioned the Solidarity Fund, which actually brings us now to the next topic of the financing of the repairs or the rebuilding after the earthquake. And I'd like to ask Filip Benjak from PJR Consulting to, yes, thank you, to activate the camera. Once again, Professor Atalic, thank you very much for being with us. And now over to Filip Benjak. Filip is from PJR Consulting. That's a specialist consulting for EU financing. And in his presentation, Filip will mainly will also give us an idea about what can be expected from EU funding for Croatia. Although, if I correct me if I'm wrong, Filip, but Croatia is also still finalizing the program, which will be the basis for the EU funds. So it's now, and we have a better idea now where Croatia intends to spend the money, but it's still a bit of a rough outline. And then you will focus also on the earthquake repairs. So fire away. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sonia. Hi to everyone. Like Sonia said, my name is Filip, and I'm mainly an EU funds consultant. And I'll try to talk today to you about mainly the needs, Croatia's needs for construction and reconstruction, how it will be financed, what can we expect in the future. But to start with, I would like to just go over the sources of the funds and how the funds will be allocated during the next 7 years. As most of you are probably aware, the budget of the European Union is for the planned 7-year periods, and currently we're at the beginning of such a period. Unfortunately, like Sonia mentioned, Croatia is a little bit slower in its planning and development of strategies, mainly because of COVID and also because of the earthquakes. And here in the picture, we can see how the EU, let's say, decided to spend the money. They defined 5 strategic points: a connected Europe, a greener carbon-free Europe, Europe closer to citizens, smarter Europe, and a more social Europe. Why is this important? Because these goals not only represent the EU goals and targets, they give an outline for member states to create their own national strategies. In this picture, you can see how Croatia defined its goals in its national development strategy called Croatia 2030. and you can see that they're mostly connected with the previous ones. And in addition, Croatia, in its development strategy, also targeted 5 key sectors and gave several strategic goals for each sector. So these goals will, in the end, be the main points of financing during this 7-year period. And you can see them all in this slide and the next one. And with this gives us roughly an estimate on what will be funded and what sectors will receive the EU funding. And where will the money for those sectors come from? Well, given the specific nature of this budget and the ongoing COVID crisis, we have a unique financing plan at the EU level for the next period. On one side, we have the standard budget called the Multi-Annual Financial Framework, or the MFF. And on the other side, we have something called the Next Generation EU Fund that will mostly be used to help member states to fight the social and economic effects of the COVID crisis. So from the MFF, the EU predicts that it will generate or provide to the member states roughly 1,074 billion euros. And from the Next Generation Fund, we can expect around 750 billion euros for member states. So where does Croatia come in this picture? Well, from the MFF, we can expect 14.48 billion euros, and they will be allocated in these headings or main areas, as you can see in this table. So this is for the MFF, and also from the Next Generation Fund, we can receive actually 11.026 billion euros. This is the maximum amount we can receive. Of course, it all depends on our readiness to absorb the funds, to put out decent calls for proposals that can be funded, to have projects that are ready to be funded from these two budgets. And the main thing about the Next Generation EU Fund is that it is very time limited. Almost as Professor Atlić said, the funds, for example, from the Solidarity Fund are time limited, but also from the Next Generation EU Fund are also time limited, and all the projects that will be funded from this allocation have to be contracted by the end of 2023. So this is going to be a problem, I believe, for Croatia, because in the previous period from 2014 to 2020, we did not do so well, and in regards of contracting and using the EU funds. So this will be a great challenge for us to absorb as much of this 11 billion euros as we can. So the Next Generation Fund will mainly be as I said, allocated to fighting COVID crisis, but also for other projects like rural development and other areas. So now that we know where the funds are coming from, roughly, there's still a lot of programming and planning and negotiations ahead of each member state, because the details are yet to be resolved. Our national development strategy is lacking certain details, and also our resilience program is still in the makings, where the government is still discussing the main areas. There is a lot of pressure from the sectors, from the economic sector, to give as much as funds as possibly they can to the private companies, not to the public sector, but we hope that by the end of May, we'll have a final document. So now let's go to our main subject, funding of earthquake damage, reconstruction, and rebuilding in Croatia. As Professor Ajtelić already said, 3 major earthquakes, actually 1 in Zagreb and 2 in Petrinja hit our country last year. And in addition to the COVID crisis, it was another huge blow for these counties that you can see in this slide, because the damage, as you have seen in his presentation, was enormous. Fortunately, not so many lives were lost, but that was probably pure luck. And now we have ahead of us a period of rebuild and reconstruction. The first damage estimations that are currently available on the Croatian government website talk about roughly 17.1 billion euros in estimated damages, but also, as Professor Ajtelić said, this will probably grow, maybe even double when the real reconstruction starts. So we can talk about 25, maybe to 30 billion euros in damages. And that is, as tragic it is, that is a huge opportunity for our construction sector to come back to life, I would like to say, because they were on a bit of a downfall, and now we have a real need for construction workers and companies. Unfortunately, Professor Ajtelić also mentioned we have a problem in that area, that most of our workers and people went abroad or working abroad, and it's hard to return them here to Croatia. So in order to fight the consequences of the earthquakes and to lead the reconstruction process, the Ministry of Physical Planning actually named an official body called the Reconstruction Fund that was formed, and it will take over, it already has taken over the everyday activities regarding the reconstruction, like receiving applications and stuff like that. And also we brought the ministry actually through laws and measures that are mentioned here, so the Reconstruction Act and the measures for reconstruction, also the guidance for reconstruction, is trying to regulate the whole process. This means that every aspect of the reconstruction, from applying for reconstruction, financing the reconstruction, getting your money back if you pay for the reconstruction yourself, is defined by those three sets of documents. When we talk about financing, as we said earlier, there's an estimate of 17.1 billion euros of damage. Currently, Croatia received 683.7 million euros from the Solidarity Fund. There will be 580 million euros allocated in the Recovery and Resilience Facility that is part of the Next Gen EU budget, and also 111 million euros from the MFF. These are the funds that we know that will be allocated to Croatia for fighting the earthquake consequences. Also, Croatia took 184 million euros of World Bank loan and is planning to take another 2.3 billion euros in loans from various banks, like the Investment Bank or EBRD. As we can see, this combined amounts to roughly 3.7 billion euros, and that's not nearly enough but to finance the whole rebuild process, but it's only a start of the renovation. So the plan is that we use this money to start the process of renovation, and hopefully we'll find other means of and funding sources as years go by, because as Professor Ajtelić said, the reconstruction will last probably decades. When we talk about specific options regarding renovation and rebuilding, the mentioned documents, the Reconstruction Act and the guidelines, foresee these four primary categories that you can fund from the funds mentioned earlier. That's the renovation of an existing earthquake damaged building, removal of a building, if it's lost, is mechanical resistance or stability, construction or replacement of family houses that were destroyed in the earthquake. And you can also receive financial aid for temporary protection of earthquake damaged buildings, structural reconstruction, and the preparation of main projects for the reconstruction. So these are the main options that are available that will be funded from all those sources. In addition to that, the 683 million euros from the Solidarity Fund were already allocated by a decision from our government to the following sectors, and they are intended to be used to return to the proper working condition infrastructure in those sectors. As you can see, most of the funds went to education sector, healthcare sector, and transportation sector, and also the cultural heritage projects, because most of Zagreb, most of the old town and the center of Zagreb is cultural heritage, so the funds here and the costs of the reconstruction of those buildings will be probably enormous. For each of these sectors, there are already open call for proposals, and they all end at the end of this year. On those calls, only mostly government institutions and other NGOs and owners of buildings can apply, but and after that they have to contract the developers, the construction crew, and everything else. So this is the final deadline for every of those call for proposals, and I believe that they will close maybe even before that, because we had a similar case with the cultural heritage call for proposals. It was closed in under 2 months after it opened, and this makes clear that the funds allocated to the cultural heritage sector are nearly not enough, because the amount here was only intended for emergency repairs and project documentation. So the funds for reconstruction are yet to be acquired by the Croatian government, and it is estimated that several billion euros will be needed just for this sector alone. So these numbers here are just available funds from the Solidarity Fund, and the real numbers, real perspective of these sectors is maybe 10 times larger. Also to mention for the previous slide, these call for proposals are only for the Zagreb area, only for the buildings that were damaged in the first earthquake. We still have to negotiate with the Solidarity Fund the funds to receive for the Sisak and Petrinja earthquakes, but in the meantime, the government opened 2 call for proposals for that area, and it's mainly for houses and buildings owned by the Republic of Croatia. So we are still waiting on the number, on the amount that we'll receive from the Solidarity Fund for this area. If you like, you can follow the call for proposals as they open and as they close on these 2 web pages. So these are the main pages in Croatia regarding EU funds and call for proposals. So you can find the information on every of the calls there. As I said earlier, the Next Generation Fund and the MFF Fund, in addition to the need for construction and reconstruction in the areas affected by the earthquake, they give us even more opportunities for investments in other areas that need construction, that need infrastructure. And according to the not yet finished National Recovery and Resilience Plan, Croatia plans from the Next Generation budget to invest several billion euros in the areas that you can see here in this slide. So they're talking about infrastructural projects regarding energy efficiency, regarding investments in production infrastructure, also the construction of infrastructure for energy and heat management, waste management, water management, reconstruction of railway infrastructure and tourism infrastructure, and a great emphasis is given on construction and rebuilding of preschool institutions and primary and secondary schools. So this is all from the Recovery and Resilience Facility, which is a part of the next generation EU budget. And we expect that in the next, it's now like 2.5 years, we can expect a lot of call for proposals regarding those areas that will need construction, how I put it, construction management and rebuilding help and infrastructural work. Also, from the multi-annual financial framework, we don't have the specific details, but we can look in the National Development Strategy for Croatia 2030, and we can also see even more areas and even more projects that are expected to be financed from that budget. So again, we have almost all of the sectors that will be funded from the Next Generation Fund will also be funded from the multi-financial framework, but the Next Generation Fund will come first, as it has to be completed. The contracting has to be completed by 2023, and the multi-financial framework needs to be contracted by 2027. So we have even more funds there for energy efficiency, production infrastructure, R&D infrastructure, also education, health, social infrastructure, and also waste management, water management. These are all the projects that Croatia is currently working on from the first budget, 2014 to 2020, and plans to continue to do so in the next 7 years. Also, there is a lot of expected call for proposals in energy renovation, also reconstruction, railways, ports, waterways, and airports. So as you can see, in addition to the need for construction workers and companies in the earthquake affected areas, there will be a lot of opportunities in Croatia to finance construction and infrastructural work in the coming years in many other sectors and areas. And this brings us to the harsh truth that I'll try to put out in this summary. But first of all, like I said, a lot of funds will be acquired for the earthquake damages and a lot of opportunities from the two key budgets. But the harsh truth is that Croatia and Croatian construction sector has insufficient capacity currently, and there is a lot of concern that we won't be able to take advantage of all those funds, mainly and mostly because our construction sector won't be able to handle the amount of work that is ahead of them. Also, we have insufficient number of design and structural engineers and all the related professions. And one thing in particular, I was just discussing with some colleagues last week, they're experts on green and circular economy. Here in Croatia, there are few of such experts, and most of the projects regarding infrastructure in the next financing period will, in one way or another, rely on those experts, because the emphasis of the MFF is green and renewable energy and green and renewable construction. So together with the needs for reconstruction in the earthquake-affected areas, it is clear that our national resources will not be enough to cover the market demand. And I believe it will surely provide an opportunity for companies from other countries to participate in the reconstruction and rebuild of Croatia in the next, I would say, 7 to maybe 15 or 20 years. That is all from me. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you very much, Philip, for this really comprehensive overview of the funding options and the opportunities that Croatia has out of the very big problems that the last year presented. Actually, there's the first question that was posted for you is rather specific. So the question is, are there any specific grants for domestic wood industry? Because reconstruction needs a lot of wood construction elements.
Currently, no. The problem with that is that when Croatia gives call for proposals out, it's not aimed at a certain industry. So wood industry is will be acceptable and is acceptable in many of those calls for proposals, but there is no indication that there will be any specific call for proposals for the wood industry.
Okay, thank you. And one question that that I'm actually asking myself is now for the reconstruction after the earthquake, most of the calls are open till the end of the year. So institutions, organizations, and actually also individuals who've had damage, they can apply for funding within a call. Do they have to wait till the end of the call until they get a decision if they get the projects approved?
Well, it mostly depends on the call itself, but from the experience from the cultural heritage call, that is not the case. They make decisions every 2 weeks, so okay. They're always assessing and evaluating the received demands, and they decide momentarily on okay. who will get the funds.
So they should actually, and then as soon as they get an allocation of funds, especially if it's organizations for cultural heritage or things like that, or also infrastructure, then they can actually start contracting the works and putting out tenders.
They can start contracting right now. So the funds are meant for the renovation, but you can finance the cost that you already had in regards to the renovation. Okay. But there is one specific situation here, and it's regarding our procurement laws. Because if you want to fund such costs, you should follow all the rules and regulations. If it's related to construction that is not considered urgent. So if you have urgent construction works, like the ones the cultural heritage call for proposals had, it is allowed to disregard, I would say, the laws and the procurement regulations. But for all other construction works, you have to follow the procedures. So, and then you can get the funds later. You can be refunded for the cost you already had.
Okay, because that's also rather unusual. Because usually you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that usually it would be the other way around. You have for the call, you have to have a project ready, and then that gets approved, and then you can.
Yeah, most of the projects are like that, but the current calls, because of the situation, because of the urgency and the infrastructural damages and the risk for human life and everything else, they decided to I would say bring down a notch with all the regulations and procedures. Okay. So it is also an exemption in our law that if it's regarded urgent and if human life or constructions are in danger of collapsing, you don't have to follow the same procedures as normal projects.
Yeah, but in general, we should actually from now on we should see tenders coming through for works. And,
I believe,
quite a lot of activity in the construction sector.
Yes, I believe a big boom will now start with tenders for construction, because in cultural heritage alone, they gave out 122 million only for emergency construction and project documentation. So everything in those documents now has to be contracted and in order to start working. So the real cost, the real amount will be in billions of euros, I believe.
Okay. Actually, one more question. You mentioned it yourself that Croatia was in the last EU financing period. In the beginning, it wasn't very successful in presenting projects to be able to draw funds, and only towards the end of the financing period, then it really started drawing funds for projects. And now I think at the end of the last financing period, it actually looked very good with regards to how much of the funds Croatia will be able to actually draw from the last period. But is there I've heard from many companies who tried to apply for these calls that the process is extremely bureaucratic. I actually know one case, she gave the money back because she said, I'd rather pay for it myself, because she just, it was ridiculous, the amount of red tape. So is the ministry aware, and do you think, are they trying to do something about making the process more easier and more accessible for companies?
Well, I certainly hope they are, but like you said, the last 7 years were a bit rough, especially because of bureaucracy and the lack of human resources. We tend to complicate things for ourselves, and therefore we didn't acquire as much funds as we could have. But they are aware that, especially for the funds from the next gen EU budget, they have to be contracted by the end of 2023, and they're certainly aware of that. I hope that they will simplify some things in those calls. But for now, the first experience from the first call that is supposed to come out this week regarding the investments in production infrastructure and equipment, I don't see it going that way, because it's already late, it's already complicated. There was a lot of discussion, a lot of criticism regarding that call, and if they continue like that, I'm afraid that the promised 11 billion euros won't be used as much as we could have.
Okay, well, let's hope for the best. I remember the call that is out now is again not open for big companies. So unfortunately, for many of our production Austrian subsidiaries in the manufacturing sector, they cannot participate, which is
that's a shame, because the whole Next Gen EU fund, especially the REACT part of it, is for the small and medium enterprises, and but they say that there will be call for proposals for larger companies, but probably not this year.
Okay. Well, Philip, thank you so much for the presentation and for the information, and also for the very interesting discussion now at the end. We're now coming to the end of the Croatia part. Ladies and gentlemen, for any questions, support the market or advice on the market, our teams here in Zagreb and also in Ljubljana, hello Willy, he's here. We are here for you, so please don't hesitate, get in touch with us, send us an email, give us a call. We're here in the office, but with travel still being a bit of a problem, we can do video sessions, Teams, what have you. So please don't hesitate to come to us for any questions you might have. And well, with this, I'm handing the word back over. I'm closing the circle, handing back over to Willy Nest. We're going back to Slovenia for final words of goodbye.
Yes, thank you very much, Sonia. Well, I would like to thank you, Sonia, and your team for the great cooperation. It's not the first time that Slovenia and Croatia organize events together, and I look forward to further common initiatives. They are all of big benefit to our companies from Austria. I would like to thank the audience for their attention. I would like to thank our speakers for their interesting presentations. And to conclude, I would like to draw your attention once again to Go International. As I mentioned before, the new contract was signed only a couple of days ago. So on the 1st of April, another term of 2 years of Go International has just begun. Now the funds are available in all the funding instruments. So please go on our website, www.go-international.at, and get information about what you can take out of this initiative. Thank you very much. I wish you a great day, and I look forward to welcoming you to one of our next events, webinars, or even better, events in person. Thank you. Have a nice day. Goodbye.